Namaste. Welcome to this energy update. It's been a long time since I've given an energy update, and I've been wanting to share a lot of the new ideas, insights, wisdoms that I've been receiving as we enter this new reality. This reality that we're moving into is this shift from linear to multidimensional reality. So a lot of our ideas, beliefs have to be re-examined, reassessed. You know, it's like turning the world upside down. Whatever we've believed is true and solid, we're having to be more flexible around and find these new solutions. And there is so much wisdom in the design. And this is what I love about this, because the universe is teaching us, showing us within the intricacies of the design of what's happening all around us, the solutions. And they won't hand it to us on a plate. They want us to find that, because through that journey of discovering where it is, we disengage from the matrix that we've been living under. And I don't just mean the original matrix of, you know, what we call normal society. I'm also talking about the spiritual matrix. What we all create these new matrices, these new belief systems, paradigms, where we believe this is what we know, right? Because this allows us to feel safe. And so that house of cards has come crumbling down. It throws us off. We feel like we're having a dark night of the soul relentlessly, as I'm sure you're having many during this time. And these are initiations that are squeezing you through the eye of the needle of unity consciousness. Because in order to move through that eye of the needle, we're having to purge out duality consciousness, which is everywhere. And this is what we're going to explore in this session. So we've just moved out of the eclipse corridor. This is the lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, and they are pretty intense in themselves. Yet, just want to speak about the summer, because we had a series of relentless initiations that you may have felt as this very dense energy that you're carrying around, and it's very heavy. Is it the collectives? Is it yours? You know, it's always both, of course. We can't just say it's something else. Yet a lot of it is coming from the collective. I just recently did an interview with someone who's holding an online conference, and one of the questions in there that she was asking was about the chaos in the world, and, you know, how do you see this great shift unfolding with all of what's happening out there? And from the surface level reality, it is pretty chaotic. It looks quite scary in a way, like everybody's fighting each other. There is so much opposition. People are polarized to extremes. And yet when we pause, and I'm going to be talking about this a lot in this session, when we pause, take a step back, have a look at what's happening from higher eyes, in other words, our spiritual eyes, or the wisdom of our heart. You know, there's many ways of looking at it. We realize that surface level reality, when we relate it to ourselves, when we move through a healing, our dense energies, emotions come to the surface, and we go through this period of purging, just as I was speaking about. And that level of purging is essential for healing. As an energy healer, when I offer sessions, I see that happening afterwards, and that's when I know change is happening, because we have to release what's inside of us to create space for the new. And so with what's happening in the world right now, there is so much density, of course, over the eons that we all have to purge through us. And it isn't just our own stuff that we're purging. We are each here as ambassadors of this great shift. And so with that, we are responsible for what has come before. That's why you're here. You're able to do that. Even though it feels like you can't, you're actually doing that already. Because what you're doing is you're processing whatever's happening within you and bringing it to the surface and feeling that it is allowing the psyche of humanity, the collective consciousness, to heal and release that, to create space for unity consciousness, which is what we all want, hungry for right now. And so right now in the world, as we look around and we see this extreme polarization, I've spoken about this before in many other updates, and I'll just briefly speak about it here. I'm sure you're tired of me speaking about this part, but this is something that I've always felt strongly. Before we embody unity consciousness, we have to venture to the extremity of polarization, which is the polar opposite of unity consciousness. We have to explore the shadow before we can get to the light. We have to move through that darkness. So this polarization is really conflict consciousness. And this is something that has been core to humanity since the beginning of time. It is our tribal nature, our tribal warfare. And right now, this conflict consciousness, as we experience it, is really, it encourages us to find an enemy, because that's the nature of it. It's trying to purge it out of our system, where we see our brother and sister as an enemy just for having a belief. And then we have a very strong belief, even though we didn't have that strong belief a moment before. It's maneuvering us into positions where we have to face and explore and meet this very uncomfortable feeling of wanting conflict even, And so once we have this dance with this part within ourselves, and we're all really fighting our own shadows out there. We're not really fighting each other. It's our own projections. And we have to understand this. And as we come to terms with this, we start to make this migration from conflict consciousness, not to like this state of, I love everyone and I'm in this incredible state of eternal peace. That may come in the future, but really to acknowledge that unity consciousness is a wisdom in itself and a paradox. It is understanding that both sides of the pole are valid. It isn't about ignoring, it isn't about denying each side, or even standing in the middle. This is our previous interpretation of how do you balance the poles. You almost stand on the fence, but you become passive and you're trying to find this constant neutral space in between. Unity consciousness is about appreciating all the colours in between. And then you approach reality from that understanding that if everything is valid, where do I fit in? Does this resonate? Am I needed here? And for me, the key to finding the path of light that spirals upwards towards unity consciousness is to ask, and I'm constantly asking myself, what is the solution here? Can I even offer a solution? Am I even capable of offering a solution in this particular situation or experience that is happening in the world or around me? If not, then am I needed here? Can I be truly helpful or beneficial here? It's knowing your limits and then deciding where your energy is best spent. Now, this is a big part, the spending of our energy. Your energy field is increasing in sensitivity, as I'm sure you're feeling. And this is an incredibly powerful thing. It isn't a disempowering thing. The more sensitive your energy becomes is a reflection of you raising your vibration to higher levels. And so, of course, you're going to find density harder to deal with. But also that includes your own density. And so that mirror that we feel with the world, we have to come to terms with our own density that we're purging through ourselves. And we'll always be given the signs by what we're triggered by what we're resenting, resisting, and what we're pushing away. So it is about owning our reality. And I'll come to that in a moment. But I do want to speak something about your energy field. And again, this is a paradox, it's owning our reality, but also appreciating that we are absorbing reality. And taking care of your energy field is so essential during these times. And so one of the key new lessons that I've learned, and this may seem like a very simple old lesson, yet it's a very different way of looking at reality. And one of these new lessons that I've learned during these times is kindness. Kindness is such a powerful key that opens the gateway into this new reality that we're all yearning to step into. And kindness is often seen as a weakness, not just by society, but also in the spiritual field. We see it as something that is disempowering if we're not standing up for ourselves or speaking our truth. Kindness is a way of ensuring that what we are doing is emanating from the heart. And so it allows us to disengage from this conflict consciousness, polarization that is occurring in the world, because it resets everything. It takes us away from immediate judgment, immediate criticism of others, but really of ourselves, right? So it starts this process of something that we all really want to do, which is open our heart. Since COVID times, a lot of us have closed down to one another, and we've become more withdrawn, more isolated. This is the same time where this extreme polarization occurred. As we started to withdraw from one another, we started to project our shadows everywhere and started to deal with that. So this incredible design was occurring. But now is the time, if any, to start to transmute that process. And when we start to open our heart to situations, we disengage from the drama, the conflict, and start to look at it in a very different way. And so you could treat it as, for example, with road rage or things that bring up an immediate sense of reactive self-righteousness within ourselves, the triggering. When you read a comment, whatever it is, it's the same energy. When we ask for kindness to enter, just as an energy, as a frequency, we pause again. And this pause is essential. It prevents us from reacting and moves us from this reaction consciousness to responsive consciousness, which is about responding to reality rather than reality being in control of you, or your emotions essentially being in control of you. You deciding which emotions are valid here. And it's not denying our emotions either. It's just understanding that some are just out of control, and we need to understand how to process them. Again, this isn't about pretending that we don't have feelings and circumventing them, the spiritual bypass. This is about choosing a different way, because for so long we have allowed another seductive heart to rule the roost. It's taking us along a path, and that is the ego. That is the part that is hurting. That is the part that is seduced by this conflict consciousness. So this kindness is really choosing this higher path and saying, I'm going to choose not to respond right now because I don't know how to. I'm going to choose not to engage in this because if I do, I don't feel this is going to be helpful to me or them. I'm going to choose not to invest my energy in this story, in this experience, in this conversation. So the more choices we make, the more empowered we get. A lot of the time, especially in the spiritual field, we've heard this idea that you need to speak your truth. And I went along with this in a big way because for a lot of us sensitive types, empathic types, we tend to not voice our feelings. And then it builds that resentment. And this is why this emerging trend has come into the spiritual field of speaking your truth. But of course, there's a shadow to everything. And I'm sure if you've explored this, you're familiar with this. This is where we unload all of our resentment onto a poor, unsuspecting soul who we've chosen to speak our truth to, which really has, 95% of that energy has very little to do with them. It's been building up with other people. So that speaking your truth can be an aggressive way of trying to assert our dominance. And this is what happens as we're trying to discover our power. We will pendulum swing into dominance, the other extreme of power, from a more passive state of being withdrawn. And again, it's okay to do that. That's how we find our power. Yet it is important to acknowledge that, and to even ask the question, is this serving a kind path, for example? You can be kind and empowered and speak, voice your opinions, for example. It can be done kindly, and that's what we're all learning. It can be done with respect. It can be done with empowerment. And we're understanding how to be empowered from the heart space with power. And for a lot of you who've come into this with an open heart already, and sensitive, finding your power is being a struggle. Okay, so this is something that I can resonate with, relate to. Yet we need heart-centered people to embrace their power, especially now. because we need that heart-centered power on the planet as a role model for others, but also to be as an anchor for this new consciousness to have a template to resonate to, so everyone knows. It's like steering the ship towards a direction. And the more of you that embrace that power within you from a heart-centered place, which isn't easy, it's not meant to be easy. It's about trial and error, and just trying and just moving ahead and exploring and experimenting. I'm constantly trying, and every time I try, I realize, okay, maybe I need to be a bit more kind, or maybe I need to voice this a little better and word it a little differently. Every situation helps. And so this move into a kinder way of living will liberate you. It is so liberating. As soon as I've brought this into my life, and every time a situation occurs, if I'm triggered or something happens, and I ask, what is the kindest thing that I can do right now? Often it's just to be with myself, because I need that kindness. But of course it's related to others, and it's reducing this reactive, instantaneous need to judge another person, instantaneously label them, box them, put them into something. So we know from energetic science, from vibrational understanding, energy healing, and near-death experiences, that when we think about another person, and positive or negative, it affects them. That energy goes towards that person, starts to reinforce a belief that they have. So if it's an insecurity and we're judging, it reinforces that insecurity. If it's positive, and this is why I love prayer, it blesses them, it reinforces that empowerment and uplifts them. And that's a big thing to acknowledge, because it makes us understand that we are all responsible for our thoughts. There's something to be aware of here. Of course, we can't help it when it emerges. So, try not to go into this anxiety of every thought you're having affecting someone out there, but it's about owning it. We are owning our reality. And it's a hard thing to do, to own your reality, to be responsible for your reality, to acknowledge that you are the one that is co-creating it, and have set up all of these design points along the way for all of the initiations that you're experiencing, however difficult they are. Yet we can make quantum leaps out of those situations if we can do very simple things. Just start to take ownership. Just start to acknowledge that I can change this. I can change my ways here. And I use this phrase a lot, raising your vibration. And it's really just about acknowledging a new reality. It's saying, I want this new, higher reality. And this is why recently, over the past year especially, I've been using the term higher timelines. I use it in a lot of my activations and retreats. And it's because it's the closest thing that I can find to describe this journey that we're having right now as we jump from realities, because it isn't just about having a shift and you're changing and there are these differences in your world. Your entire reality is shifting as you make these quantum leaps, and we're entering new timelines, new realities, and those new timelines essentially are new realities, a new series of experiences that are laid out for you that herald a whole new set of possibilities for you beyond your wildest dreams. Yet in order to get there, we have to raise our vibration and we have to do the work. And doing the work is, it can be boring. Let's be honest, because it takes time, it takes effort, it takes discipline. Yet it's only like that at the beginning, as we make that shift from an uncomfortable place to something that is, from one place to another is an uncomfortable feeling, and moving through that discomfort is the hardest thing. And so I have a motto for myself now, it's just do what's uncomfortable. Because for a lot of my life I didn't. I wanted the path that was effortless. I thought that was the spiritual way. Choose the effortless path. Yet it made my life I had more struggles and more suffering in my life. And so as I approach discomfort, and that means the things that I find difficult to do, yet my soul wants to do. And this is an example, right? So doing the video right here, this is uncomfortable for me, showing up, being seen. I'm sensitive by nature. I'm more introverted. So doing this is uncomfortable, but it's heralding loads of rewards for myself and hopefully for you guys as well. So coming back to these timelines, as you're experiencing these big shifts, it's about understanding that you're not tied to your reality, but you're not tied to collective reality either. Collective reality doesn't own you. Whatever's happening in the world outside doesn't tent you in. You know, it's not housing you. So I'll give an example. If something is happening to the economy that everyone's talking about, it doesn't mean it affects you. Because you have your own experience. And let's face it, there are many people out there who are not affected by the economy. Is that because they're wealthier? Maybe. Or maybe they're just not choosing to be affected by it. I've experienced my whole life where people have told me things that I wouldn't be able to do. For example, setting up the college, the spiritual college that I set up, stepping onto my path, so many things. And luckily I had a voice inside saying, don't listen to them. But I still listened, you know, it affected my confidence, and which I had very little of anyway. But I still wanted to try, and I ended up doing it and proving to myself that nobody really knows me or my reality or what's possible. Only I do, and I'm going to keep exploring it. So the moment you start to disengaging from what the collective consensus is, the moment you start to be truly free, and you can do what we call jump timelines. And that isn't this big esoteric idea where you just move into this reality where you're a light being. Although if you can do that, you know, go ahead. This is about these incremental shifts that we do where we start to see, wow, there's something huge happening in my life. I can't even believe I've got here where I am today compared to a week or 2 weeks ago or a month ago. It's being surprised by what happens. And this is what I refer to as these synchronicities emerging from the great mystery during these times. Because if we can truly surrender our reality and truly surrender what is happening, the great mystery comes in and takes us for a ride. And this is what I feel I'm on and have been for quite some time. I feel like a puppet rather than this creator of my life, which is what I used to believe. I am in control of my life and I create and design everything in my life. Even when I believed I co-created, I still believed that I was the one creating everything. Perhaps, you know, I don't know this, but I know that when I surrender to the great mystery, to the universe, to spirit, and say, I don't know, I find more miracles and synchronicities in my life occurring while still moving forward myself and taking those steps forward towards my desires and exploring them. Pausing, but also moving through discomfort, and you can make quantum leaps rather than feeling stuck all the time. It's just exploring, playing, allowing that inner child to be free. If you feel like you don't know what to do, find a hobby. Through that hobby that your soul wants to do, it opens up your heart, opens up your experience, opens up your consciousness. Synchronicities come in. You're receptive to the higher consciousness insights that are wanting to download in. This phrase is setting me free. Am I truly living? Are you truly living? And if not, what is it that you can do to truly feel like you're enjoying your life? Just start from there. Through that gateway, your soul purpose, your connection will all start to rebuild. And for me, this is where the journey's at.